My name is Jack, and I've been married to Emma for 8 years. We met through mutual friends, hit it off immediately, and within a year, we were married. Life seemed perfect. Emma was kind, intelligent, and beautiful. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and I managed a small IT firm. Together, we built a comfortable life. Over the years, we had our ups and downs, like any couple. But for the most part, we were happy. Our son Liam was the light of our lives. Emma was a fantastic mother and a devoted wife. Or so I thought. It started subtly, the changes in Emma. She began spending more time at work, often staying late to cover shifts for colleagues. Initially, I didn't think much of it. Nursing is a demanding profession, and Emma was dedicated. But then, there were the little things. She'd come home exhausted, yet unusually cheerful, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. She started taking extra care with her appearance before leaving for work, which struck me as odd considering the long hours she spent there. I tried to ignore the nagging doubts. Emma and I had always been open with each other, and I trusted her. But one night, while she was in the shower, I saw a text flash on her phone. It was from a contact named Alex, and it read, "Can't wait to see you again." My stomach churned. I'd never heard of an Alex before, and this message felt too intimate for comfort. I confronted Emma about it, casually asking who Alex was. She shrugged it off, saying he was a patient who had become a friend. "He's terminally ill," she explained. "We just talk sometimes. He has no one else." I wanted to believe her, but something about her explanation didn't sit right with me. The following weeks were a blur of growing suspicion. Emma continued to stay late at work, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I noticed more texts from Alex, and though I never saw anything explicit, the frequency alone was enough to unsettle me. Emma had always been good at keeping her personal and professional lives separate, but now they seemed to be blurring in ways that made me uncomfortable. One evening, I decided to surprise Emma by bringing her dinner at the hospital. I thought it might cheer her up and give me a chance to see for myself what was going on. When I arrived, the receptionist told me she was in Ward B, Room 12. I headed there, expecting to find her attending to a patient or finishing up some paperwork. What I found instead turned my world upside down. The door to the room was slightly ajar, and as I approached, I heard muffled voices and soft laughter. I peeked through the gap, and there they were, Emma and an older man, lying together in a hospital bed, their bodies entangled. The man was thin, pale, clearly unwell, but the look of contentment on his face was unmistakable. Emma's back was to me, but I could see enough to know what was happening. I felt a rush of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. I wanted to storm in, to confront them right then and there, but I was frozen, rooted to the spot by the sheer shock of it all. My mind raced with 1,000 questions. How long had this been going on? Why him? Why now? Unable to process the scene any longer, I turned and left, my heart pounding in my chest. As I drove home, tears blurred my vision. The woman I loved, the mother of my child, had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. In the days that followed, I became obsessed with finding out the truth. I needed to know everything about this Alex, this dying man who had somehow become the center of my wife's world. I began by searching through Emma's phone whenever I had the chance. She had become careful, deleting texts and call logs, but not careful enough. Using a recovery app, I managed to retrieve some of the deleted messages, and what I found confirmed my worst fears. Their relationship had been going on for months. The messages were filled with declarations of love, plans to meet, and intimate details that made my stomach turn. Emma spoke of him with a tenderness I hadn't seen from her in a long time. They talked about life, death, and everything in between. It was clear that this wasn't just a fling. It was an emotional affair that had deeply affected both of them. I decided to follow her one evening. She told me she had to stay late again, so I parked outside the hospital and waited. Sure enough, around 9 p.m. she emerged, but instead of heading to her car, she walked to a nearby park. I watched as she met Alex, who was waiting for her on a bench. They embraced, and I could see the tears streaming down Emma's face as they held each other. It was all too much. I felt an overwhelming sense of rage and betrayal. I wanted to confront them, to shout, to scream, but I knew I needed to keep my composure. I needed to plan my next steps carefully. Returning home, I decided to confront Emma the next day, but not before I had gathered all the evidence I needed to ensure there would be no denying the truth. I spent the night compiling everything: texts, photos, timestamps. By morning, I was ready. When Emma came home, I was waiting for her in the living room. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. She looked at me, her eyes widening in alarm, and I knew she sensed what was coming. "About what?" she asked, her voice shaking. "About Alex," I replied, holding up her phone with the incriminating text displayed. Her face went pale, and for a moment, she looked like she might faint. Emma stood there, speechless, as I laid out everything I had found. The texts, the photos, the times she had lied to me. Her initial shock gave way to tears, and she began to plead, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that Alex was just a friend who needed her. "A friend!" I shouted, unable to contain my anger any longer. "I saw you with him, Emma. I saw everything. How could you do this to me? To us? To Liam?" She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, and I felt a momentary pang of guilt, but the anger quickly returned. This wasn't just about me. It was about the family she had betrayed. I had to make her understand the gravity of her actions. "I need you to leave," I said, my voice cold and resolute. "Pack your things and go. I can't look at you right now." Emma tried to protest, but I stood firm. I watched as she packed a bag, tears streaming down her face, and left the house. As the door closed behind her, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. This was just the beginning of what would be a long and painful journey. But I wasn't done yet. I needed to confront Alex, to make sure he understood the consequences of his actions. I found his address in Emma's phone and drove to his apartment. When he answered the door, he looked startled to see me. "Can we talk?" I said, pushing past him into the apartment. He didn't dare stop me. I walked into his living room and sat down, glaring at him. "Sit," I ordered, and he obeyed, his face pale and nervous. "You've been sleeping with my wife," I said bluntly. "I want to hear your side of the story." Alex stammered, trying to find the words, but I cut him off. "Don't bother lying. I have all the evidence I need. I just want to know why." He hung his head, silent for a moment, before finally speaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Emma was just... she was there for me when no one else was." His words did little to soothe my anger. "You think that justifies what you did? You destroyed my family, you and Emma both, and now you're going to face the consequences." I stood up, towering over him. "You're going to end this now. You're going to stop seeing Emma, and you're going to stay away from my family. If you don't, I will make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are. Do you understand?" Alex nodded, tears in his eyes. "I understand. I'm so sorry." As I left his apartment, I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. It wasn't enough to heal the wound Emma and Alex had inflicted, but it was a start. I had taken control of the situation and made sure Alex would face the consequences of his actions. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, tense conversations, and emotional turmoil. Emma and I agreed to separate, and I filed for divorce. It was the hardest decision I had ever made, but it was necessary for my own sanity and for Liam's well-being. Emma tried to make amends, pleading for another chance, but the trust was gone. Every time I looked at her, I saw her with Alex. I couldn't move past it, and I knew I never would. We arranged for shared custody of Liam, and I moved into a small apartment nearby. It wasn't ideal, but it was a start. Surprisingly, Alex kept his word. He stayed away from Emma, and I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was in poor health, deteriorating quickly. Part of me felt sorry for him, but another part couldn't muster any sympathy. He had made his choices, and now he was paying the price. As the months passed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, spent as much time as I could with Liam, and started therapy to help process the trauma of the betrayal. Slowly, but surely, I began to heal. One day, I met someone new. Her name was Emily, and she had a warmth and kindness that immediately drew me in. We took things slow, but she understood my past and was patient with me. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. Emma and I remained civil for Liam's sake, but there was no repairing what had been broken. I knew that, and I think she did too. We had both made mistakes, but hers had shattered our marriage beyond repair. Looking back, I realized that the pain and betrayal had forced me to reevaluate my life, to understand what truly mattered. I learned to value myself, to recognize my worth, and to never settle for anything less than I deserved. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to face it head-on, with Liam by my side and a newfound strength within me.